Welcome back to Inspire AI, the podcast where we explore how innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders are shaping the future with artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Jason McGinty. Today's episode is about balance, literally and figuratively. My guest, Vincent Vu, is the founder of Kennis AI, an AI-powered platform redefining what he calls balanced health. Vincent's journey started back in 2018 with Kennis Barefoot, a minimalist footwear company. But in 2023, after years of research and mentorship, he made a bold pivot into clinical technology, developing Kennis Step, a platform that can assess balance, predict fall risk, and help people live longer, healthier, and safer lives. Vincent's vision doesn't stop there. He's working toward a future where balance is considered the next vital sign, on par with heart rate and blood pressure, and even imagining a human digital twin that could transform healthcare, sports performance, and military readiness. It's a story of grit, reinvention, and purpose, and I think you'll find it just as inspiring as I do. So let's dive in. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on the call. I'm really excited, and it's an honor for me to share my story and Kinis' journey with the community.
Fantastic. Let's get started. So can you tell us, um, tell, start by telling our audience about yourself and the inspiration of bringing you here today.
Yeah, so thank you again. My name is Vincent Vu. I am originally from Vietnam. I before immigrate to the U.S., I spent 6 years in a refugee camp from 1990 to 1996. After the war, of course, my family escaped in a little fishing boat, 165 of us, after days at sea, and we arrived at a refugee camp. Spending 6 years, most of the time in the refugee camp. As you can imagine, I'm in around barefoot, playing a lot of soccer barefoot. In 1998, we immigrated to the U.S. I first moved to a small town called Sioux City, Iowa. I went to high school there. My first job, I worked the farm. And then 1999, we moved to Richmond. So Richmond had been in my hometown for my entire life. Went to high school, went to Tucker, and went away for college a little bit. I studied architecture, and then came back to Richmond in 2008, worked for a small local architecture firm here. And since then, yeah, this Richmond has been my hometown, and that's where I start my professional career, and also where I start the minimalist shoe company.
Wow, that's a beautiful start to the episode today, sharing your backstory, how you made it to the United States, and what you're offering as an entrepreneur to the community around you. So you mentioned something there, barefoot, which I think resonates with your story. In 2018, you launched Kennis Barefoot. What exactly inspired you to do that originally?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a from a personal foot injury. So I left architecture, went and worked for a manufacturing company as a director of engineering. I travel a lot, and most of my job is pretty much in meeting travel, and my health was declining. So I got into running as a way to just kind of, say, manage my stress. And when I got into running, in a couple weeks into running, I hurt myself, I injured myself. And then I keep going by shoe after shoe, try different running shoe, nothing worked. And one day, one of my mentors told me the book called Born to Run. So I read the book Born to Run, which is the author Chris McDougall talk about this group of people in a remote region of Mexico, in the Copper Canyon, where they can run for anywhere a long distance, 50 plus mile with a very thin sandal. I read that book. Really, it brought me back a lot of my early childhood in the refugee camp where I'm barefoot. Here I am after more than 10 years in the US, my feet just crumbling, falling apart.
Mm.
And then I got to the point that I just got so frustrated, and I that's where I diving deep into understanding human evolution. So I went back 2 million years ago when we become bipedal, and how we changed, and hunter gatherer, and read a lot of book. And then next thing I know, I started to learn about foot anatomies and human biomechanics. It's just I went down this rabbit hole, and and the more I look into that and all the research I look at, it really what I have learned the fact that from my personal experience, it really the shoe that constrict my natural foot movement, the way we look at modern shoes. So I even went and read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, and their story as well, which is very inspiring for me. So, long story short, I get to the point that I decide that, you know what, I'm going to find a solution because I just reviewed the fact that I'm in my early 30s. I didn't want to go to see podiatrist or where I thought I can buy all these things. And all the sign I look at and the story that I read about these group of people in Mexico, and it's really hit home for me that there's a way that we can, we can readapt, regain the strength naturally again without going to all of these what you call medical device or solution. So what happened during that time, I went back to school to get my MBA, and I remember during that time one of my first class was design thinking class, and I said, well, there's an opportunity to apply this concept I just learned how to solve this problem in a logical way, and that really the next thing I know, I end up starting a shoe company, and I didn't have any background in shoe design, manufacturing, so I started to buy a lot of books, talk to a lot of folks, and watch a lot of YouTube video. And to be honest, it's our frustration. That's how I start a minimal shoe company.
Incredible. Yeah. Frustration, physical, and yeah. And the lack of options. I hear you. Personal anecdote here. I recently discovered how useful it was to get sized for the proper shoe before, thinking, hey, this shoe looks good on my feet. I'm going to use it to run like the next 20 miles. There's so much to be gained from properly fitting the right shoes and getting to know your steps, and I think your company is offering all of that and much more. So tell us about around 2023, you pivoted to Kennis AI with Kennis Step, focused on balance health and fall risk prediction. So what was the turning point that convinced you to reinvent the company around that mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going back to the when we start the shoe company, the minimalist shoe company, the Kennis Barefoot. Well, we when we start that company, I really look at shoe from through a science lens. So I say, hey, it's really not about the fashion. I will, for me at that moment, I was careless about fashion. I want to design a shoe that really promote that natural movement. So long story short, we have three products in the market. Two of our products get medical approval from the American Podiatrist Association. And one of our product called the Lucy, which is an everyday walking shoe, one of our best-selling product ever. We sell that globally. And what happened, I keep getting a lot of requests from my customers, especially folks a little bit older, say, hey, do you have any shoe that help with my balance and, so forth and so on. Because the idea of balance, going back to the idea of how can we design shoes that optimize the foot natural movement, not to get in the way, not to provide support, but optimize. So let the foot move naturally. So one day at lunch, I just happened to say, "Oh, you know what? Let me spend the next 30 minutes. Let me dive deep into this whole balance thing and see what's going on." And when I did that, what really eye-opening for me when I look at some statistics from our CDC, which fall the leading cause of death among the folks over 65 in the U.S. We're spending for $80 billion a year now, 40,000 deaths, not chronic disease like we think, but and that just really took me by surprise. And then when I look at the solution in the market, there hasn't been very, I would say, sustainable solution. We treat fall as an afterthought. But we don't talk about balance until somebody experience the fall and you go to surgery. And then if you're alive, some people die within 6 months. And what we did was we went back and looked at is there an opportunity. All the solution on the market at that point just very reactive. It's fall detection, but detection that means somebody already hurting, injured right now on the floor. Detection not gonna solve. So at that moment, at the beginning at that moment, I'm starting to get to learn. Or I read a few books about artificial intelligence, and I see there's an opportunity that we can use artificial intelligence if we can capture enough data. Is there an opportunity at that point that we can predict fall risk from the happening in place? And when we look at all the solution in the market and we look at all the technology, whether sensor technology, whether the software side, and that's where we decide to pivot that hey, there's an opportunity that we can address this problem. I like to call the silent problem that no one discuss about, but we all relate to it. I spend
Mhm.
a lot of time. So that's where we make the strategic decision, pivot from a minimal footwear company leveraging but still leveraging all the knowledge that we gained for the last couple of years and carry it on over, but do it leveraging technology and do it at scale.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm starting to pick up on a pattern in your life, in your approach to problem solving is where you identify a problem, whether it's impacting you or loved ones, and you dive real deep into it, try to really understand the root cause of that. And then you go and make it a mission of your own to try to figure out what can you do to help make a difference in this area. I definitely sense that. It's, I think, one of your superpowers, if I could, offer that to you. What I'd like to do now is like talk about your pivot, because I know pivots can be difficult for founders. So, how do you personally navigate the emotional and strategic challenges of changing course so drastically?
That's a great question. It was difficult by no means. It's difficult for me personally because I invest so much into the original company and to get into the revenue stage, and then at that point,
Hmm.
making that so there's an economics impact to me personally. The point. So, but when I look at the problem, I see that and I weigh the risk. At that point, that's where you become very pragmatic. Say, okay, I can be comfortable with what I have right now but know the fact that by doing so, I start to I disregard the opportunity to address something at scale, something bigger that no one talk about. What
Hmm.
we addressing in that point was to me, is a very a temporary solution and that market can be quite small, but if we expand, we can help people with the technology. We help people where they need help the most. Because right now, I spend a lot of time. That's where I got involved with some folks at VCU. We did a capstone and we did a whole customer discovery, long story short. But we spent a lot of time at assisted living facility. And every time we talk to these folk and we hear these story over and over again, and the more I listen to this story, the more I think of my own father, the more I think of my own family, the more I think about myself. I'm 40 right now. Hey, I'll get 80, 70. Hopefully I leave it long, but it impact all of us. So that is really when I look at that and step back, to me, it's an no-brainer to make that decision, to make that point. It was difficult, but when I analyze everything, it was the right decision for us as a company. It was risky, but hey, we start out from nothing in the first place anyway. So it's a natural progression for us.
Hmm. Yeah, it was spoken like a true entrepreneur, someone who wants to make a difference in the lives of others. That's great. And I heard a little bit about your story there and how you leveraged the relationships, and especially with organizations like VCU. So you've had, several mentorships from experts like Dr. Stephen Morrison, and partnerships with universities, like you said, VCU, GMU. So how did those relationships shape the trajectory of Kennis AI?
Yeah, I think a lot of that I want to bring Startup Virginia ecosystem into play because throughout Startup Virginia, we've been members in 2018 Lighthouse Lab. So these would be because these relationship when I start to talk to these folks that hey, we want to pivot the business to become a technology a digital health company, and that's where with an ICAP I got reached out to I forgot his name, but one of the leading AIs professor at JMU. At that point, we have this idea, but we still haven't figured out the mechanic behind that. So that's where I reach out and same thing with Dr. Stephen Morrison at ODU. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he's really the one that he's an expert, fall prevention expert. He was very grateful to meet with me and share with me, and we both believe in this idea that hey, this we can do this, we can predict this thing, we can build these tools. So same thing with what the we also apply for the grant to the Virginia Innovation Partnership that believe in our really our concept one want to put together. So at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to do what we do right now without the ecosystem that put in play to support us. Whether that start Virginia, Lighthouse Lab, Virginia, and of course the grant, the $75,000 grant we received from the Virginia Innovation Partnership. So, and of course, the mentoring from Dr. Stephen, and of course, some professor at George Mason as well.
Yes, and it absolutely takes a village to make great things happen. Sounds like you're leveraging your network and the network of others to help you and build this great vision out. So it's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing. So for other entrepreneurs listening, what advice would you give on how to leverage academic partnerships and grants like BIPC, Commonwealth Commercialization Fund, or NIH, SBIR for real world innovation?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I always ask entrepreneur or someone who want to get into the space, all you have to do is, of course, I always start with identify the problem. Come up with spend your time, do your homework, do your market research, do your customer discovery, because what you want to do, you want to come to the table. At least you have a one thing you need to get down. You need to solidify your problem. Your solution is only as good. And when I teach, I teach as well. When I always talk to my student that your solution is only as good as the problem. Okay, so for me is that's why I spend a lot of time understanding the problem, because to be honest with you, before Kennis Barefoot, I had three other startups and they all failed. And when I look back at these, the reason why I failed, because again, there's zero product market fit. I jump into the solution. When I jump into solution, I didn't spend enough time understanding the pain point, the problem. So I learned from that three mistake, because I made not one but three same mistake over and over again. So that's why I'm very adamant about understand the problem better. You got to know your problem. You need to know your customer. You got to know your market. You got to know your competition, and understand that. So for me, my advice to entrepreneur, it's okay. You don't know what you don't know, but you have to come to the table, present. At least you got to present your solution. Might not have all the resolution or the detail figure. That's okay, but at least you come with a solid problem statement. Say this is what the problem, and this is the current solution. This is what the pain point. This is what the market is saying, and it has an opportunity for us to look at this and come up something a better solution that offer a better value. So reach out. People, like I say, people, from my personal experience, I have been very grateful for all the folks that who helped me over the year. The only thing, you're not gonna get help unless you reach out. It's okay. You don't have to know everything. That's why these experts will guide you. You help you to refine the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned design thinking and re- problem refinement, which goes really well with one of the podcast episodes I recently published on problem finding and communicating the issues at hand. And it's really, just a side note. It's about like AI helping us to build content and be creators, and essentially like you can do all of that, but it really would benefit like the use case to define the problem really well first, like you're saying, and create a proper mission around that problem so that you're not just endlessly creating new content for no reason and solving problems that don't really exist in people's lives. Sounds to me like you have a really good foundation of identifying problems and researching and getting to the details that matter. And I think that's probably one of the best foundational starting points before you go and dig into trying to solve for these things. That's great. Thank you for sharing. So you've described your mission as making balance health the next vital sign. Can you break down what that means and why balance is such an overlooked aspect of the human health?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going back to the statistic I shared earlier, falling. When you look at fall, there are multiple reasons why. And when I talked to Dr. Steve Morrison, we identify balance deficiency is one of the key factor. We can look at gait. When we look at balance, we look at gait. But for the most part, We all know someone, whether with our family or or someone that, or whether have an older person that fall and whether that injure or pass away. Well, a lot of that, what we're saying that, well, we don't treat balance as something that we the only time, the problem what I'm seeing right now, the way our system work at the moment, we treat pair balance an afterthought. We only treat balance, let's say somebody older have some balance mobility problem, fall with a hip fracture or whatever that may be. You go to surgery and then you go to back to PT. And that's where your PT evaluate your balance. Well, to me, that's a little backward the way we look at it. So what we're saying that if we are checking your blood pressure, your glucose level at the vital sign. But well, guess what? Balance deficiency will ultimately will leading to the fall, will kill you as just like any other thing. But we don't talk about that because the way we look at it is very fragmented approach solution. And what we want to do is we want to take, hey, what if we pursue balance as the next vital sign by taking it as a pre-screening tool? That's what we want to position it. Is like, hey, now next time you go to your primary care doctor, well, you don't have to wait until you fall and go to PT, go the traditional route. That now we want to make sure balance, access balance, checking your balance is easy as the next vital sign because it is important for us to do so. And um, because right now no one talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound fragmented. So tell us a little bit about how your platform, Kennis Step and Balance Pro, turn everyday movement into measurable, actionable insights for clinicians and patients.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we are saying that, hey, Kennis at heart of us, we are not an AI company. We are a movement intelligent company. And how what do I mean by that? So there are two different ways we look at it. AI is a tool, it's part of our toolbox. Yeah. So for us, we believe in this whole idea, the hybrid care model. So where we bridge the clinician, the patient, where we provide the data, we empower the clinician, in this case, could be the doctor, could be the PT, could be the OT, with the right data information. And that information also provide the patient at the same time. So the clinician right now have to make the decision with the right information, most updated information to develop a comprehensive solution for the patient. So the way the platform works that we build a software and hardware stack. So the first product, what we talk, when you mentioned the BalancePro, a BalancePro is a computer vision technology that we deploy to the iPad. That's all we need. Anywhere you have an access to camera, doesn't matter iPad, you can use an iPhone as well. So we deploy to the clinic within 5 minutes. We give you a comprehensive balance assessment. We broke the body out to 17 different key points. That next time you go to a primary care doctor, which we currently in pilot right now, three live pilot happening, one in Vietnam and two in the US, two here locally. Primary care doctor, the clinician will deploy our technologies. Within that, we give you a balance assessment, we give you a comprehensive score, and then we can tell you what you need about our platform, that we have these whole library exercise that we can prescribe to you. And then when you go home, you can log in your patient portal. So really, we really what we want to we bridge the clinic and home. That is the Balance Pro. The Balance Step, the Balance Pro give you balance score, and then of course the Kennis Step is another piece of hardware that again we combine software and hardware. As piece of hardware you wear at your ankle, you walk for 100 steps. We collect enough data that we can give you a gait analysis, so we can measure you have a gait score. We know exactly how you walk. We look for the abnormality. We compare your age group. So that really we build really comprehensive in terms of your we like to call movement score. We combine balance score and gait score, give you movement score, a very comprehensive understanding of your biomechanics.
Yeah, so a hardware and a software stack that empowers people to make better decisions about their health, right? In general, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned piloting Kennis AI in both the U.S. and in Vietnam. Just curious, can you tell us some differences that you've noticed about adoption, and what do those pilots teach you about scaling globally?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So we start out with Vietnam market first, and to be honest, we do have a team based in Vietnam there. All our science team. So we have a science team, we have engineer team, a product team. Our science team is we have a right now have four doctor US based here in the US, and we do have a product and an engineer team based in Vietnam. So pilot Vietnam, why Vietnam? Because that's where of course, our engineer team there, we built the products. And we found a clinic, which is one of the most innovative clinic in the country. The reason at the beginning we were use that clinic to kind as a quick way for us to test the products. And then when we found the clinic, we have learned that hey, Vietnam market, physical therapy market is fairly new. The Vietnam and for the most part, and when we look at the population, there's 100 million people in Vietnam right now. There are 15 million right now that need access to these kind of service, which they don't have access to. Because in Vietnam, right now, we look at the current solution. You have private clinic, which is very expensive. You have to go, and then you have the hospital, which is state-owned hospital, which is under developed in the moment. So we have the big gap in the middle market not being served, and we say, hey, there's an opportunity for us to bring these U.S. Great qualities science with the technology to serve the middle market. So we deploy that. That's why we decided to go ahead and pilot in Vietnam first. And based on the feedback, the adoption rate, we have been very, very successful. And one of the beautiful thing when it comes to you build these products, which is what we trying to do right now is something kind of different because when you look at our competition, there's people doing like more like fragmented when we do more comprehensive. So by working clinic that have a closed feedback loop that allow it to speed up the development. So we build a product, we test the clinic, we get feedback from the clinician, we get feedback from the patient. So that's going well. So overall, the adoption rate, the big challenge for us since Vietnam is a developed country, low income now, it's trying to get into the middle income economy. The patient or the customer, the big challenge for us is to education. We have to educate what is physical therapy because for them, most of them, physical therapy is like traditional Asian massage or some sort of medicine, something. So that's a big adoption, the big hurdle that we have to spend a lot of time educate the public from that perspective. Now, you
Mhm.
ship back to the US, we partner. So what we learn in Vietnam, basically allow us to speed up the development of the software and the hardware. And then by the time we get to the US, which we are officially kick up two pilot right now, make the process a lot easier because it take a lot of work to have an official clinical pilot here in the US. So
Mhm.
think about Vietnam is like a pre-market, pre-pilot.
Yeah.
We fine tune the product, and then when we get to the US, we are in a much better shape in terms of make sure we are clinically we have all the protocol in play, make sure that we are built according to AWS HIPAA compliance, so forth and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking the regulatory advantages of learning from your approach in Vietnam and bringing those lessons back to the US makes a lot of sense. And you sound extremely focused, and your roadmap is super ambitious. You've got clinical applications, sports performance, and even military readiness. So, how do you decide where to focus without losing momentum?
Yeah, that's something I battle as every day. But at the end of the day, for us, what we have decided that, I think we didn't want to be just another platform or wellness app that give generic information. There's a lot of that on the market already. What we position ourselves that we want to be clinical, giving clinical data. So for us, in order to, you like talk about roadmap, getting sport and performance, getting, of course, the human digital twin and the military application, we cannot achieve any of that if we are not successful on the clinical phase one first. Because to us, we still validate the technology. That's why we do these pilot programs so we can do case studies so we can show effectiveness. And along the way, there's a lot we still have to figure out, and we can't figure out everything on our own. So that means we have to leverage the doctor, the clinician, and the patient. So that is what we have to say. In order, yes, it's good to be ambition. It's good that's why I spend 10% of my time thinking about the future application, whether in the military application, how we're going to empower the soldier on the ground to make sure that we optimize his movement, how we're going to empower the next athlete to reduce his injury, optimize the performance. But those are great things, but we can't get there unless we are successful on the clinical phase. That's why as I think about the step-by-step process, I want to be very focused on do one thing well before we can try to do too many other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about my lack of knowledge here is obvious, but military boots, right? How they how soldiers have to march in these boots and how uncomfortable that must feel to be marching for miles and miles on end. And because I've been running my whole life and I know how important it is to find the right pair of shoes, I really hope that, if the military grade boots haven't come a long way, that you offer them something that they can really leverage. And I just imagine how uncomfortable those things are and how I would be impacted if I had to march around in those things. That's for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah. May I share a little bit? I want to spend about 30 seconds, expand on that a little bit, the military application. Yeah, you're right. A lot of these, they boot are heavy, a lot of the soldier, but I think for us, there are more that we envision. Imagine that you go in a battlefield environment, that we can have sensor, that we can sense the environment, we can sense your heart rate, we can have live video haptic to you that wide it and that can measure heart rate, how you performing. We can guide you if you should think the left to the right. We can have LiDAR. Imagine we have LiDAR built into the boot. So think about these smart shoes. So there's a lot more application than beyond just making the boot less heavier. And we can measure your stress. We can measure heart rate. We can tell you how you perform in that environment. Imagine we have a command center that the feedback go back to this command center so we can see tactical how the soldier operate in certain environment. So there are more application that we can bring to that because there's so much. Because at the end of the day, you're facing the enemy, you're in an environment that you're not sure you navigate. So there's a lot of decision making process that are happening. Every single step count. So there's a lot more information that we can collect and feed to command center, and we can evaluate how you perform in that environment. So think about there's a lot more application that that's something that excite me. If we something that we can, if for us as a company, eventually we want to work with the DoD, that we can develop a technology, whether hardware or software, that we can empower the soldier at that environment. If we can, that can whether that save life or in any kind of rescue mission as well. So there's a lot more that we want to expand into.
that's beautiful. Tell me a little bit about your sports performance vision there, because it's very inspiring to hear how you can help with soldiers and their missions. But I feel like there's a lot of optimization around sports performance that would be just absolute gold to the industry. I'm just curious what your vision is there.
Yeah, I mean, for me and an athlete, so I compete in Spartan race. An athlete, the two things you always have to make the decision, optimizing because as an athlete, you always optimizing. Okay. And at the same time, you risk injure yourself. So you only have to make the decision. So for us is how can we collect enough data that we can help you optimize to achieve what X, Y, Z, because we
Hmm.
know that performance perspective. But at the same time, it's equally important how can we, as you optimize the thing, we have to balance out the risk factor. So think about your now we know your running gait, your distance, your heart rate. We take everything in consideration. So what we envision that if you have an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, you have a lot of upper body analytic array. We can tie that into our lower body biomechanic data. And now what we can do, we can look the whole body biometrics. Because right now we know a lot about the upper, a lot of athlete injury actually lower body injury.
Hmm.
A lot of injury is lower body. So, but lower body, if you look at on the market, you look at all the wearable devices, the only thing you get for the most part, your step, your distance, your calorie. But other than that, a lot of it is still black box.
Yeah.
And we want to be able, what without technology, when it comes to the BalancePro, Kennis Step, we will launch a sport and performance division, the Kennis Pro, because and that's where we can start to really give you a very comprehensive understanding about your low body biomechanic. By giving you that, we can know what sport you play. We know what type, is it balance? I'll give you an example. Golf. If you play golf, balance is extremely important when to golf. And we can
Yep.
tell you that. We can tell exactly what foot, what angle you need to focus on, how you're going to optimize that. So,
Yeah. Any breakthroughs in the near future on how to optimize for shin splint prevention?
sorry. A lot of that, you don't need that. It's just running mechanics.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Running mechanics. I mean, we can help, but I think a lot of that, let's say, the human body is an incredible machine. I look at it as an incredible machine piece of engineering that took 2 million years of evolution. So it's sometimes what I find, including myself, that a lot of we have a lot of product in the markets, a lot of that through clever marketing. But if you really break down the science, human, we have been running for mile and mile. We are persistent hunter. We didn't have shoe. We didn't have all that stuff that we call nowadays that you can buy off on the market. But it's understanding using the body naturally, understanding your biomechanics.
Got it. Well, speaking of understanding, you mentioned this before, the human digital twin. Sounds pretty fascinating. So, what possibilities does that unlock for predicting, preventing, and optimizing our performance?
Well, thank you for talking about, for me, as I, try to focus on everything we do on a daily basis, on a weekly or monthly basis. These are the moonshot project. I'm gonna call it moonshot project, but I believe that the future we're heading to, because what we envision, especially in the healthcare space, the way we do right now, we diagnose, then the doctor will look at different options, different treatment to figure out the right treatment for you. I'll give you an example. You have let's say for me, if I have cancer and the doctor do a biopsy and all that stuff, and say they'll test different drug to see how my body react to that. So and whenever you do that, that put a lot of stress on the body for the
Mhm.
patient, and it's also costly. So there's a still. So what we hope to do, we say, what if? Because the human bodies, and I talked a little bit about biointelligence, which is the human body give out signal. But what we need to do is figure out how to capture these data, turn them to data, so we can turn into something that can be useful for us. So the whole idea of the human digital project, that let's say you already have a lot of analytical data from your wearable devices, whether from your wrist, from your ring, from your band, and then you have our technology at the bottom. Now, if we can collect all of data over this period of time, then what I would allow us to do, and of course we collect your nutrition, your daily activity, your health, your background about your overall health, and what we should be able to do, build a digital version of Jason. So now Jason say, hey Vincent, I want to do this 20, Richmond Marathon, and say, Jason, well, we have all your heart rate data, we have all your biomechanical data over the last how many months or weeks. We will build, and we know the terrain that you're going to run. We know the environment. We know everything that given data, and we're going to let your digital version run to see. And what happened is we want to be able to pinpoint where the deficiency at that point. And when that allow us to identify, say, so Jason, instead for you kind of focus on general idea training, we can pinpoint exactly where you can focus your training.
Hmm.
Longer speaking, what we love to do is if we can take, let's say, if somebody over 50, and we will build a digital version of this person, we can project out 5 year, 10 year, 20 year from now, the progression, whether
Hmm.
the body is just human nature, it's just science, the body degrade over time. So, but we can project that out based on what we know about you, based on your current activity, based on your nutrition, based on your movement pattern, we can predict that. So that is really the at this point a broader view of what we believe the human digital twin would allow us to do.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. If I had a goal of one day running in a half or a full marathon, I could leverage my digital twin to help me optimize my performance and my workout program, and based on all of the data that it has on me. That would be really incredible. And then just being able to kind of map out what the future of I want to say my balance program, if you will, like everything that would matter to me in the next 20 years based on the data where I'm projected to be, and make informed decisions about how I want to continue doing what I'm doing today, or changing what I'm doing today so that I can have a better outcome in the next 20 years. That would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible. And tell us a little bit about your work with the Balance Health Academy, where you're embedding your work into science. How do you balance the need for rigorous clinical validation and with the speed expected from a startup?
Yeah, that is actually really critical to us as a company. What we want to do is if we're going to tell somebody about their balance, their movement, and how we can help them to optimize their movement, so to prevent some of the the outcome which he fall and injure later on. So we want every layer of our technology stack, we embed science to that. So that's why we have a science team. So the way we did, you make decision as a company, because to me that's important. That it's going back to the original. Since we start Kennis Barefoot as a company is we look at you from the science perspective. So that has been root deep into our DNA. One, we identify the problem, okay, and then we always start with the science team as the first team, evaluate that, and then is it a problem? Is it scientifically? Have we looked at it from side? Are there any research back that up? And then the next thing we start to look at, solution. And the science team will be the team that design on the solution because we want to make sure that when we put out the product, it's going through this rigorous step-by-step process. So when we tell a patient, whether a clinician, that we have the tool, we want to make sure that we have do everything humanly possible from our end, whether from the technology standpoint, from the data privacy perspective, whether from the scientific perspective, we have done everything that we can to ensure that we deliver the best product that we can deliver to our customer. So it is critical. Our science team wants to go back to the workflow was the science team one, we develop the protocol, we develop the solution, and that's where the engineer will come back on the back end. So the science team have a lot of the veto right. And of course, there's always cohesiveness between science and engineer. We all get in the room together before we actually code a single line.
Awesome. And I know that the Richmond startup ecosystem has really fueled your journey there. So, what has the local community given you exactly? And how do you see yourself giving back as a founder?
A lot. Well, the local community giving me a lot. So, like I mentioned, Start Virginia is a great ecosystem. We've been a member since 2018. And then you have Lighthouse Lab, again, a lot of mentor. We got here today, I say the reason I were able to connect with my mentor, unfortunately passed away, in which he does make the project even more personal for me. Steve, and the other one, Earl Cox, is one of my long-term mentor who passed away as well. So for me personally, that I want to dedicate this project to their legacy. Well, they believe in me. Start Virginia, Lighthouse Lab, Virginia Innovation Partnership, the ICAP program. So yeah, these are great organizations. That's why I always thank for their support, the grant, of course, and of course access to all the mentor. So for me, the giving back is, and I share with everybody, I'm open. You reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share with you anytime. But all I ask you that you want to make sure that you do your homework before you come and spend time with me because I want to make sure that whether I'm spending you 30 minutes an hour, we walk away something that inspire you to take the next action. So I will continue my mental legacy by sharing what I have learned over the years.
Beautiful. Yeah. Always try to pay it forward. That's a great thing. So for innovators in challenging tech industries and health tech specifically, where there are many risks high and timelines are long. So what's the mindset required to stay resilient?
Well, at the end of the day, you have to have a purpose, your why. We start with a why. Your why have to be bigger than your problem because problem will come every single day. I have more setback than you can imagine. But at the end of the day, if your why, you have a strong purpose why you're doing it, and I learned this over the year. Don't do it because you think a startup is something that glamorous that you've been portrayed in media. It's a long journey. I have been in
Mhm.
partnerships for the last 8 years. I have committed myself, and to me, that's something that I'm passionate about because I think about the impact that we'll deliver to the people we're helping. To me, that keep me get up every day, and it's a journey. You have to enjoy it. You have to live it. And you have to live to the moment that you feel like, why am I doing it? You pour your hair out, you stay up 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You have to willing to give up a lot of things. You have to be willing to humility. People misunderstood. Not everybody will get you, but that's okay. But that's why you need to find yourself some great mentor. You have to have you have to be able to really truly love what you do because it's going to be very difficult. And lastly, I start shoe business not knowing anything about shoe. I start a digital health company not know anything about health or health tech or technology or sensor, but I can learn. Stay curious, learning. Start, I read so many books about sensor hardware. I went and talked to a lot of people. You don't need to be an expert. Sometimes to me, inexperience is the best thing can happen to you. Not knowing is the best thing can happen to you. But you have to know at the end of the day that you have to persevere, persistent, patient, and purpose. Those are the things that I highly recommend you should consider before you think about enter any kind of industry if you want
Yeah.
to make something innovative.
Yeah. Yeah. I love knowing your why. And that's going to be what gets you out of bed in the morning and keeps you moving, and not knowing everything and just being able to bring the experts in the room with you to answer the questions. I think that's really powerful stuff. And you often speak about mobility and wellness across the human lifespan. How does that perspective influence the way that you lead your company and your personal vision of longevity?
Yeah, mobility has always been important to me. Going back to, I think after I injured myself, and the next thing I know, I started a shoe company. In 2022, I ended up running a barefoot marathon. Not because I wanted to. For me, there's two things that happened there. I ran a barefoot marathon, took me 6.5 hours. I ran a marathon because I was trying to raise money for the Afghan refugee. Being a refugee myself, it resonated. It to me, there are two things I want to raise money, and the other thing I want to prove that the human body is an amazing machine. I couldn't run 2 mile indoor, and after I make the transition, here I am at age 39. Who knows? Then I end up running the barefoot marathon. So mobility is important. We talk about, I was out in San Francisco pitching to a group of VC on a longevity market. Longevity is a big thing nowadays. Longevity, wellness, health span. But when you look at longevity over in and we need to define how do we define that? Well, you can't have longevity or wellness or health span if you don't have mobility.
Mhm.
Think about it. We take our mobility for granted, but until you don't have it, that change your life drastically. So mobility to me, that's to me the first of the thing, and something that we need to take time and take care of our ability to move, which is starting your balance, your gait. So we can enjoy, we can do activity. You can go out play soccer with your kid. You can go for a long hike. That to me that's important.
All of that makes so much sense. So let's fast forward 10 years from now. What does success for Kennis AI look like? Not just for you, but your patients, communities, and the society at large.
Absolutely. What we envision the future where, I talk about a lot, mobility is the beginning, but what we're looking about is preventive care. What we want to do, preventive care should be accessible to me, it should be a human right to do that because right now, preventive care in general is still it's only a very selected group of people. There's 8 billion people on this planet that we're sharing, we call home. But preventive care doesn't apply. It's only applied to a small group of us. So what we envision success means that we will leverage technologies and build an ecosystem where we want, think about this new idea, a digital hospital that focus on preventive health. That's what success means to us. That means we have a global digital hospital that we want to make preventive care access to everyone and anyone. And that means we can build technology with hardware and software. The idea of going to a traditional hospital model, I think there's an opportunity that there's a lot of deficiency for that, and also creates a lot of limited access to a lot of folks. Imagine that we have a digital hospital for the first digital hospital that we can make access, that we can have technology in this case both software and hardware. We make preventive care accessible for everyone who want to have that.
And that is the future.
Yes.
Yes, I see it. I'm with you. And I wish you the best of luck making that future happen for everyone. But Vincent, I want to thank you. Your story is a reminder that innovation often comes from reimagining the overlooked and turning it into something transformative. So what stood out for me today was that's the kind of ambitious vision the world needs more of. So thank you. And for our listeners, I hope today's conversation sparks a new perspective on what health movement and innovation can mean in the age of AI. So until next time, I'm Jason McGinty, reminding you to stay curious, keep innovating, and always look for ways to future proof your knowledge.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And then I'll say, like, I really resonate when you say stay curious. Curiosity,
Mhm.
that's what make it human.
Yes.
Stay curious. And just, you got to start from somewhere. Now is the time.
Start from what is your why and track in the right problem.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Well, I learned a lot from you today, so thank you so much.
Thank you,
And I know
Jason.
our audience is going to really enjoy this one.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share, my personal story and then also Kennis story and how we're gonna inspire the next generation of entrepreneur and also the people that the life that we're gonna impact with our technologies.